You're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, 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 other than day one.
Donald Trump has successfully moved the Overton window in a way that is as dangerous for the future of democracy in this country as anything else.
This is what Vout and Project 2025 wanted.
Newsom is he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great.
They control the Congress, they control the White House, and they control the courts. And so, of course, they're massively overreaching. And yes, they are getting away with it right now.
This is clearly a man who cannot tolerate criticism of him or what he does, which is exactly what authoritarianism is all about.
The New York Times is just as fake as CNN and MSDNC. They really are the enemy of the people.
What he is saying, rather bluntly, if you stand up to Donald Trump, he will punish you.
Protesters in Philadelphia, state capitals in California, Minnesota, Michigan, Texas, Wisconsin, Indiana, and others showed up to oppose Trump, Musk, and Project 2025.
The US and President Trump has overseen America's largest military parade in decades as nationwide protests take place against his leadership.
Demonstrations are happening right across the United States today to oppose the Trump administration.
Two visions of America. On a day the country's deepening divide was there for all the world to see.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf, and you are watching Logically Left, true independent progressive media. I do not get $8,000 checks from any PACs or whatever. Okay, purely independent progressive media funded by, yes, mainly you. Also ads. Let's be honest, that's a pretty big chunk. Yeah. No Polymarket, no, backing from Polymarket Studios or anything like that. Or, well, I should say I'm not broadcasting from the Polymarket Studio, nor am I getting money from any of these particular groups that people are talking about now. So, yeah, I have read that story. I was going to talk about it today, but I ran out of time to prep my story. That whole thing. And look, it's causing a lot of controversy in the Democratic Party, I should say in the more of the liberal spaces, okay? Because again, they're paying influencers. And what's interesting is like I have a very nuanced opinion of this, and don't get worried, right, about when I say something like that, okay? Because it's one of those things where it's like, all right, are they getting paid for their to have a certain opinion, to express a certain opinion, or and is that having an impact on what they are and are not allowed to say? And so I think that the answer to that question, because everybody's got their own answer to it right now. And look, Quesadilla asks, they listed them as contributors. What's the controversy? The controversy is whether or not they had changed their opinions or didn't talk about certain things. For example, Gaza, or any problems with the Democratic Party overall. That's the controversy. Whether or not they took the money and then that either was a directive to not talk about certain things or causing some people to self-censor. That right there would be the controversy. Are you self-censoring because you're getting paid? Also, there is the issue of transparency. No one could come out and say, as far as I know, at least as far as the articles are concerned, you couldn't come out and say that, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm taking money from this group as part of our outreach or whatever. And so transparency. And so that really is a lot of the controversy here. Again, some of the people that are involved are like, look, it's just a workshop and it's a way to boost up progressive voices. Well, I mean, I'm a progressive voice. I'd never got offered any of that. Not that I would take it, but I'm just saying that, like, all right, well, I mean, yeah, I think it's good to want to boost up smaller creators and all that. But like, all right, did that change your opinion? Did you take the money and then not talk about things like Gaza or not criticize the Democratic establishment because ultimately that's where a lot of the donors might have been involved. And again, I don't know anything particularly about this because there are so many different, perspectives on it. People saying things, people saying different things, pushing back against that. And again, this has become a massive thing inside of the Democratic Party. Okay, so look, again, there is that issue, and it's a lot to parse out. It's a lot to talk about because it gets very nuanced. I know, well, I wouldn't say that I'm like close to anybody. Most of the people that have received the money, I never even heard of, which really shouldn't be a surprise. And most have probably never even heard of me. But then again, there's other things. There's people that I do know of that are involved here. And people that I've had generally, friendly relation or at least respectful relation with, conversations with and all that, and people who know people and et cetera, et cetera. And so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, what are the facts here? Did this change your opinion or not? Or did you self-censor because of this? Is this, were you basically, shilling for the Democratic Party? Is what that is, and avoiding talking, or are you just getting paid for doing the things that you were already doing before, and therefore, it being like, oh well, we are going to support you. You're already saying the things that we would like you to say, and so yeah, okay, we'll help you out. We'll give you money. I don't know what's going on. Okay, I don't know. I will say that if it did change your opinion on certain things, or lead you to not talk about sore spots like Gaza, then that would not be a good thing. That would not be a good thing at all. And so again, I don't know entirely what's going on. All I can tell you is I don't get big money from anyone. Okay, I don't. That's it. That's the reality of the situation. So I've never been offered any of these things. I won't even do a sponsorship. And so that's the reality. Yes, I did see BTC's explanation of it. Again, I don't know who to believe here, because it's not like the Democratic Party has been completely on the up and up about certain things, okay, or about many things. And so it's like, I don't know. BS. What do you mean, Captain Trips? Like BS on what? That's what I'm kind of curious. Okay. Like I don't know for sure. I don't personally know Brian Tyler Cohen. I don't have anything against any of the people that are really involved. I mean, I obviously disagree with David Pakman on Israel Gaza. But again, I don't know. Like if they had changed their opinions or anything based on the money, or if it really is what they say it actually is, which is a way to, again, raise up progressive content creators, which I do think is kind of something that needs to happen because there is no money here on the left and there is no support here on the left. And so the right is, and I've talked about this before, they're eating our lunch when it comes to online messaging. My only issue would be then, having the Democratic Party control the message of some of their creators. You know what I'm saying? And if that is the case, then I do not like that. Some liberal YouTube personalities were mad when we started calling for Biden to not run again. That was fishy. It's a big hoopla over nothing. I trust and believe BTC. Again, I don't know the guy. He has to, and I'm being like completely, fair about this, right? He said, he tweeted out something like, nice, I think about me. And that was cool. But I don't really know him. And I'm sure we have some minute disagreements. And so I don't know who, I don't really know exactly who to believe on this one. I'm just saying that as for me, I am completely independent. I don't have funders except for people who watch the show. So, and that's it. That's the reality. Okay, the truth is often unprofitable. Yeah, that is true. That is true. I'm skeptical of a lot of things. So I'll just keep it at that because, I don't know these people personally. And how could I get to know these people? I'm just a relatively small YouTuber myself who has never been approached by any of these things. All right, but I've got the actual stories here, so why don't we dive into that? It is soon to be Labor Day weekend, and the President of the United States is celebrating the holiday by stripping labor rights from federal employees. That's right. On Thursday, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to strip the collective bargaining rights away from workers at the National Weather Service, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and other federal agencies, claiming a national security exemption. Okay. National security? What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, no, it's a national security emergency. That's why we have to take away their rights to collectively bargain? How do workers that assert their right to collectively bargain, how does that impact national security? I don't think it does, especially for workers that are not even involved in national security. Okay? Now, look, this move basically builds on Trump's executive orders in March, aiming to end bargaining rights for an estimated 1 million federal workers under the same premise. That order is being challenged in court. A lot of the workers that are impacted, like, for example, nurses and park rangers, well, obviously, they don't really serve national security functions, do they? No, not really. Now, they're arguing in court that this is basically retaliation against them for pushing back against Trump's agenda, which, again, is anti-worker. Now, I think this is more Project 2025. One of the stated goals in Project 2025 is to destroy public sector unions. Now, they're stating that union representation of government workers is, quote, incompatible with democracy, and are asking Congress to make public sector unions illegal. That is in Project 2025. That is their plan. Okay? So now, so far, the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society, their Supreme Court, okay, picks that Trump has put on the court. So far, they have cited against public sector unions over and over and over again. In the Janus v. AFSCME decision, public employees are allowed to opt out of paying union dues while still receiving the benefits of collective bargaining. Now, that basically allows people to freeload. That freeloading ends up harming unions and union workers, by the way, in the long run, because it starves them of revenue, starves them of the funding that they use to try to protect workers and advocate for them. So, I mean, it's pretty clear what's going on here. All right. Now, Matt Biggs, president of the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, which represents workers at NASA, said that it was particularly upsetting that Trump chose to sign his latest order just ahead of Labor Day advertisement. Okay. The Trump administration has doubled down on being the most anti-labor, anti-worker administration in United States history, Biggs said in a statement. He added the bargaining rights for civil servants at NASA extend back to the 1960s. I'm not exactly sure what union workers who voted for Donald Trump really expected from this administration. You know? I mean, you had the Teamsters, for example, Sean O'Brien, who met with Donald Trump, okay? And the Teamsters also poured money into Republican candidates and refused to make a presidential endorsement. Now they're finding out that Republicans, they're not exactly great for unions. Weird. Now, look, first they come for the public sector unions, and then they come for the rest of the unions. That's usually how it works out. Now, Everett Kelly, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, noted that some of the agencies in Trump's Thursday order had already been hollowed out by cuts from the administration and its so-called Department of Government Efficiency, the DOGE. Oh, yes, the not-so-efficient Department of Government Efficiency. The one that wasted tons and tons of money. The one that was paying their employees over, what, 6 figures? To come in and break government and steal our personal information, our data from the SSA, for example, probably giving it off to Palantir, Peter Thiel's company, that is going to take our information, likely, and kind of develop a Chinese-style social credit thing based on our information. Oh, great. Yeah, lovely. Awesome. So, no, terrible. Now, the cuts here, by the way, I mean, they were in the National Weather Service, who now has to hire hundreds of workers after pushing too many of them out the door that they couldn't actually function. Now, Kelly said in a statement that the latest executive order is another clear example of retaliation against federal employee union members who bravely stood up against his anti-worker, anti-American plan to dismantle the federal government. Now, as HuffPost had reported earlier in April, Trump has gone after unions, after workers, even more aggressively than Ronald Reagan. I mean, where Ronald Reagan was patient zero, you have Trump that is essentially the plague. He is continuing that work in breaking federal unions. In addition to stripping bargaining rights from workers, he's also made sure that agencies that actually enforce federal union rights get kneecapped. Okay? He's also ignored union contracts negotiated by his predecessor. It's very obvious what they're trying to do, said Lauren Leap, who heads a union chapter at the Bureau of Land Management. The administration knows we fight, and they know it's in the public interest. We're fighting to keep people in these positions so they can continue to serve, and they don't like it. Look, at the end of the day, Trump, he's coming for workers. I mean, it's not like he hasn't already given his opinion on unions, right? When he was talking with Elon Musk, he's like, yeah, I hate unions. Yep, I hate unions and I hate overtime. And I don't pay it. So, and of course, Elon Musk also hates unions. All these giant corporate people hate unions. So that's what's going on here. Look, they don't like it when working people get together and in order to fight for each other. Instead, they would rather have it where workers fight each other for what little scraps come from the wealthy's table. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that he continues to not only divide people, but also to weaken public sector unions. So. Okay. Hold on. But not skeptical of the election results. Confusing. Actually, I have talked about that. And I'm looking forward to that case being litigated in September. So just to let you know. Dude doesn't pay his contractors, period. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of people that Trump has stiffed throughout the years. That is true. All right. Okay. And yep, and right to work. Indeed. Agreed. Okay. As expected, the Trump White House is now touting the numbers in DC when it comes to crime. Well, that's interesting. So, look, I've talked about how crime in DC is at a 30-year low. And talked about that when he was still having conversations about whether or not he's going to send the military into DC. So, what's interesting now is that Trump, the Trump administration, specifically Carolyn Levitt, is coming out there and saying, look how far crime has fallen in DC, and it's all thanks to dear leader. That's right. During Thursday's press briefing, she told reporters, quote, total crime in DC is down 19% and violent crime is down 30%. These numbers prove President's bold actions to make DC safe and beautiful again are working just like he said they would. Wait, hold on here. Hold on just a minute. Crime was already down in DC. You didn't do anything. This is tuxedo mask all over again. He's like, my job here is done. You didn't do anything. In fact, you might have actually made it worse. Look, they have reported that they've arrested a bunch of people. You know what happens when you arrest a bunch of people? Turns out the crime rate goes up because those arrests, crime, right? Well, there you go. You actually made the crime rate go up. It's kind of ironic. All right. Look, these numbers come from the DC Metropolitan Police Department, right? Which Trump had previously accused, before he took it over, of manipulating crime data to create a false impression of safety. Yes, because that's exactly what police would do. Lie about crime stats. Yes, they do, but in the other direction, usually like, oh, there's so much crime, we need help. We need money. We need more funding because we don't have enough people. Well, so now he's saying, well, now that I have taken over the DC police force, things are so much safer now. When in reality, they were about as safe as it was before. In fact, it's actually more dangerous because you have these roving patrols of, people with guns, by the way, walking around DC and going in and arresting brown people for being brown. That's the reality of the situation. But suddenly now those numbers, the numbers from before, they're real now. They're real. That's right. I just want to take credit for things that I didn't do. That's the reality. All right. Trump 101. Lie about things. For example, they're eating the cats and dogs. Okay. Oh, they're eating the cats and dogs. Are they eating the cats and dogs? No. You lied. You lied about that. And then, of course, he will do something that actually ends up creating more problems or wasting money. Again, every National Guard soldier that is deployed in DC costs $530 a day. And yet, what are they doing most of the time? They're picking up garbage, which, oh, well, beautification and all that, right? Okay, but $530 a day versus, I don't know, parks employees, right, that were fired because they cost too much. They got paid $17 an hour. So, I mean, it's actually way more expensive to do this, to have these soldiers there picking up trash, than it is to have the parks employees that you fired for being too expensive. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, but that's what he does. And then, by the way, now he's declaring victory by using the facts and statistics that you previously said were fake. What? Earlier this month, Trump claimed that DC gave fake crime numbers in order to create that false illusion of safety. This is a very bad and dangerous thing to do, and they are under serious investigation for doing so. Bro, investigate yourself. All right? Oh, they have to stop issuing false crime numbers. Trump said Tuesday at the White House, what they did is they issued numbers that it was the best in 30 years. It's not the best. It's the worst. What? They gave phony numbers, and they fired the man that did not want to write the phony numbers. No, that's actually what you did for the person who put out the unflattering jobs numbers. Remember that? I mean, look, there is an allegation, by the way, and I don't really believe them, that came out from the city's police union, okay, which said that a commander in one of the city's 7 police districts had allegedly falsified crime data by incorrectly categorizing certain offenses in the district. The commander, according to Fraternal Order of Police Chairman Greg Pemberton, has been put on administrative leave. But the problem is widespread. When our members respond to the scene of a felony offense, where there is a victim reporting that a felony occurred, inevitably there will be a lieutenant or a captain that will show up on that scene and direct those members to take a report for a lesser offense, Pemberton claimed in July. Here's the thing. Police, they generally, especially police unions, they tend to back fascists, okay? They are the one union that does not have any solidarity with the working class. In fact, more often than not, they are deployed against the working class. So I don't believe anything that they're saying. I do tend to trust data that comes out, even though sometimes, admittedly, that data can be incomplete because of non-reporting, okay? So people, might not report certain crimes or whatever, and there's always been that issue. This is not a new thing that happens. Even so, here we have a marked drop-off of crime. That's it. According to the Council on Criminal Justice, a think tank that analyzes crime statistics, they say that there is an unmistakable drop in DC crime since 2023. An unmistakable drop. And by the way, that trend has been continued since the 1960s, okay? Crime has been dropping all across the country for a very long time. We are safer now than we have been for a very, very long time. That doesn't mean that there isn't crime. No, it just means the amount of crime is decreasing. And look, here's the thing. The Capitol actually does have crime. There is violence, right? But DC has less crime than many other cities. For example, look, the crime rate in DC is 926, the violent crime rate, 926 per 100,000 people. Now you want to compare that to other cities, right? Compare it to Memphis, the second biggest city in Tennessee, who had 2,501 violent crimes per 100,000 people. according to data from the FBI. Okay. Now, then, just in case you're thinking, why don't you talk about Detroit? All right, well, that's Blue City. Guess what? They closely trail Memphis with their own violent crime rate of 1,781 per 100,000 people. They also have a rate of 31.2 homicides per 100,000 residents. There is an issue there. Then you have Baltimore. You also have Kansas City, and other cities, okay? Look, crime exists in cities. I know, big shocker. Yet, overall, the crime rate in all these cities, all across the country, is on a trend down. And so, DC, by the way, definitely not one of the most dangerous cities. All right? And so, but notice how Trump only targets blue cities with large African American populations to do his military takeovers. Okay? Talking about doing it to Baltimore, talking about doing it to Chicago, but not talking about Memphis, not talking about Baton Rouge, okay? Not talking about any of those places, which actually do have very high crime rates that happen to be in red states, red cities. So notice how he doesn't talk about any of that stuff. And and of course, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. All right. Now, Thaddeus Johnson, a senior fellow at CCJ and an associate professor of criminal justice at Georgia State, said that the way that the DC's numbers have been politicized by this administration is not good. It's actually very unhelpful. Okay? How are you going to call it cooked, he asks, and then turn around and use it? Johnson told HuffPost, it confuses the people and causes them to be uncertain on what to believe. Well, and that's the whole point. Okay? The right wing on this issue loves to muddy the waters in order to confuse people and to get them to not believe in factual reality, but to only believe in what the dear leader says. And unfortunately, we are seeing that play out right in front of our eyes. Yep, National Guard on trash detail in DC. Exactly. Okay. Oops. It didn't take long for the Trump White House to accuse senior officials who quit in solidarity with Dr. Susan Menarez, CDC, to accuse those people of being woke.
One of those individuals wrote in his departure statement that he identifies pregnant women as pregnant people. So that's not someone who we want in this administration anyway.
Because, pregnant people, we all know that women are people, right? So they can't be pregnant people. Don't you know that? What? Look, here's the thing. The backlash against that phrase and against pronouns is ridiculous. It would be comical if it didn't harm the LGBTQ community. I mean, again, it is stupid and harmful. No one is actually hurt when someone uses their preferred pronouns. Okay? No one is harmed by the usage of pronouns. No one. And yet, apparently, that's using pronouns as woke. The wokers. All right, you can't call them pregnant people. No, I have to be women. That's it. That's it. Oh, so you're policing words now. You're policing language. Are you sure you're the party of freedom, everybody? Are you sure? Are you sure? Now, anyway, Dr. Daskalakis, and I talked about him in a previous segment, had resigned along with several others, and they recently went on CNN. So you have Dr. Deb Oury and former CDC Deputy Director and Chief Medical Officer, that's Dr. Hari, and then, of course, Dr. Daniel Jernigan, who was the director of the National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases. Okay, they joined CNN to talk about their firing, and specifically, Dr. Daskalakis really pushed back against what Carolyn Levitt had said, and I'm going to show you that.
So I think that another important thing to ask the secretary is, has he been ever briefed by a CDC expert on anything, specifically measles, COVID-19, flu? I think that people should ask him that in that hearing.
What would the answer to that be?
So the answer is no.
No one has ever briefed him on any of those issues that you just mentioned there, including measles, given the outbreak in the United States right now?
He's getting information from somewhere. Yeah, he's getting information from somewhere, but that information is not coming from CDC experts. CDC is the preeminent public health organization, I'm going to say, in the world. And he's not taking us up on several offers to brief him on these very important topics.
Why do you think that is?
On the issue, I don't know the answer. Perhaps he has alternate experts that he may trust more than the experts at CDC that the rest of the world regards as the best scientists in the areas. But back to the question, I had for my entire career been an advocate for the LGBTQ community through my work in HIV, through my work in MPOX. I find it outrageous that this administration is trying to erase transgender people. I very specifically used the term pregnant people and very specifically added my pronouns at the end of my resignation letter to make the point that I am defying this terrible strategy at trying to erase people and not allowing them to express their identities. So I accept the note from the press secretary and counter that with, I don't care.
Okay, I love that answer. I love the answer of, yeah, I did this on purpose, and yeah, I don't care what they have to say about it. Yeah, there it is. There you go. Now, there's a lot that he talked about in this, and I'm just going to go through some of the things that I thought was interesting. On the issue of RFK Jr., for example, right? And whether or not he's been listening to the CDC, this guy's like, no, he doesn't listen to us at all. He's not talking to us. The people there, the experts. And of course, that's not really a surprise. I don't think, I'm not sure what anybody expected here, that RFK Jr. was going to listen to experts. The man has made a career out of ignoring medical science. That's the reality of the situation, right? And speaking of like, okay, well, who does he talk to? He's got alternatives. I wouldn't call them experts, but he has alternative sources that he listens to on these things, and that's why he's made a lot of very questionable decisions. And not only that, but this is why measles cases are exploding all across the country, because he's not listening to the CDC, to actual experts. Why COVID continues to go up. I mean, it's not like COVID ever disappeared. It's still here. Just nobody talks about it. And he's about to pull COVID vaccines off the shelves. And not only that, but look, it's probably why the plague's coming back. Literally, cases of the Black Death are being confirmed in states across the country. Like, for example, there's one in California. Now, I know I talk about the Black Plague, right? It's not as deadly as it was before. I mean, because we have modern medical science. But that's kind of the problem here, okay? We have people in charge now that do not put their trust in science or the scientific method. They believe in crackpot wellness influencers. That's where they're getting their information. Okay. And so, look, those are your experts now. Okay. The people that told you to go and ingest colloidal silver. All right. Those are your experts that this guy is listening to. You know, and maybe it's him, maybe it's the worm in his head. I don't know. But it's very, very concerning. Look, the question, though, is, do I trust Big Pharma? No, of course not. Why? Why? Because they're trying to make money. Well, how do they make money? By gatekeeping life-saving medication behind a paywall. You see, here's the thing. They make tons of money off of drugs that help with things like weight loss or, you know, cancer drugs or stuff that helps manage autoimmune diseases. They do not make the majority of their money off vaccines. Okay. In fact, look, the COVID vaccine, for example, they don't nearly bring in as much money as those other drugs do. And so that right there, I mean, if they're in, since their entire, you know, profit motive is driven by these other drugs, then yeah, they're going to continue to push those other ones. Now, what does that have to do with the safety of vaccines? Well, vaccines, they don't make the people a lot of money, but they're just a general good for society. And so I trust the science behind the vaccines. I trust the science behind a lot of their drugs. I just don't trust the profit motive. I don't trust the greed motive of these giant corporations. That's the reality. Look, I used to think that maybe RFK Jr. shared in that belief of like, hey, you know, fighting against the greed model of these giant corporations and trying to rein them in. Has he done any of that? Has Trump done any of that? No, no. They've actually undone some of the Biden reforms to make it so that insulin, for example, was capped. The cost of insulin. And so now the cost of insulin is going back up because there's no more cap on it. That's not exactly helping people. That's not exactly making America healthy again. In fact, this guy's just been going in on conspiracy theories. That's it. That's the reality of the situation. And so, look, he's out there helping grifters push so-called miracle cures that at best do not work. They do nothing, or at worst, they hurt people. And so that's why it's important, okay, to push back, and why I'm glad that these people are pushing back and, yes, have resigned. Again, what they said, okay, and for example, Daskalakis in his resignation letter said, quote, their desire to please a political base will result in death and disability of vulnerable children and adults. Their base should be the people that they serve, not a political voting bloc. So that is what the CDC has turned into, a political organization, okay, by a political appointee. That's one of the problems. And of course, they point out all these other issues, how they're using misinformation and they're politicizing the CDC to pander to anti-science people. And the best that they can come up with, that the White House can come up with is, oh yeah, he was too woke. Really? That's it? Look, I think that all of this, what we're going through right now as a country, is a great example of how COVID pretty much destroyed a generation of people. Let's be honest about that, okay? Just for some people, just being locked down for a couple of weeks has led to a massive backlash, where science is now being just completely shunned and ignored. Okay, I mean, we are basically in what you could call a new dark age. I mean, that's what it feels like to me. Okay, we're in a new dark age where facts don't matter anymore. In fact, there are people that are pushing back against facts, pushing back against science, and pushing, you know, religion, Christian nationalism on our government, on everyone involved. And so we are in the dark ages now, and it's going to take Well, I mean, I don't know what it's going to take to get us out of it, but I'm hoping that one of these days, real soon, we end up having a bit of a renaissance and an enlightenment to get us back to a society that once again embraces science and the scientific method. Because, look, let's be honest, vaccines, medical science, and science in general has saved so many lives over the decades and over, the centuries, okay? And let's be honest about that. And it saved so many lives that were put in danger by, crackpots like RFK Jr. Okay. Vaccines are also one of the most rigorously studied medical technologies of all. Yeah, and there's a reason for that. Okay. A civil rights attorney is putting out a warning that one of Trump's executive orders that he has signed on Monday would permit random fascist vigilantes to help him crack down on protesters across the country. Wow. Now, that order directs Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to ensure that each state's National Guard is equipped to assist federal, state, and local law enforcement in quelling civil disturbances and ensure public safety. So you might think, okay, well, what's the problem there? Well, there's a lot of problems, okay, with this. For one, it does so by creating an online portal for Americans with law enforcement or other relevant backgrounds on a perhaps military or experience, and to be able to sign up to be what is essentially a brown shirt. I kid you not. So these citizens can come and sign up for this online and then be deputized by agency heads to enforce federal law. Oh. Now, Alec Carrick at Sanis, the executive director of the Civil Rights Corps, described this as basically an online portal to permit random fascist vigilantes to join with soldiers. He added that this is one of the scariest things that I've seen in U.S. politics in my adult life. Yeah. I mean, what else can you call it than the Trump brown shirts? Okay, but instead of brown shirts, I guess they're going to have red hats or face masks or something. I don't know. Now, earlier this month, the Washington Post reported on an internal memo discussing the creation of this quick reaction force, which outlined its objectives in clear detail, calling for 600 National Guard troops to be on standby at all times so they could deploy in as little as 1 hour to American cities facing protest or other unrest. I mean, note that it's like protest. They're going to criminalize protest. I mean, that's really, really bad. Now, it didn't mention the involvement of civilians, but I suspect that involving them was always part of the plan. I mean, think about the J6ers, the Capitol rioters, right? It's not like Donald Trump hasn't kept warm relations with them. He pardoned them all. And not only that, but again, leaders of these groups, okay, like the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, pardon them too. Look, they showed up for Trump, and now he has rewarded them, and it's very likely that they're going to show up for him again. This time, perhaps as part of his quick reaction force. He's already met with Tario. He's already met with Stuart Rhodes, who had previously suggested, after his pardon, that they could help Trump in doing retribution upon his enemies. And there you go. The Oath Keepers, by the way, had also used that same term, quick reaction force, to refer to their efforts to transfer weapons across state lines to have them ready in the nation's capital on January 6th to help with Trump's overturning of the election. So, look, I think they can't wait for the chance to treat anti-Trump protesters the way that they were treated by police. But remember, they're not going to wait for those protesters to do violence before they start cracking skulls. I think we're all very, very aware of that. Okay? We're very aware of that. Now, Lisa Gilbert, co-president of the pro-democracy advocacy group Public Citizen, said on Monday that the executive order represents a dangerous expansion of Trump's authoritarian takeover. She said freedom of speech and the right to assembly are foundational constitutional rights, and the Posse Comitatus Act prevents the use of the military domestically. The moves outlined in this overreaching and unnecessary executive action undercut those foundational rights and are egregious steps by a wannabe dictator who is placing the pursuit of power above the well-being of our country. In the Atlantic, technology reporter Ali Braylon noted that members of the Proud Boys he'd been monitoring, quote, seemed to be particularly pleased by the government's exciting new career opportunity. Yes, to join the Brownshirts. Look, you have more. Jesse Rabinowitz of the DC-based National Homeless Law Center went on to describe what the DC takeover actually looks like on X. He said, quote, there are full-on police checkpoints most nights. Every day, multiple friends see ICE kidnapping people off the streets. Daycares are scared to have kids go on walks due to the actions of ICE, which again, they're out there racially profiling people and arresting them just for being brown. That's it. Whether or not they're American citizens. Okay, and again, a lot of American citizens have been arrested by ICE. Some have been deported. Or exiled, I should say. We're talking children here. Okay, now, according to research by, funny enough, the Libertarian Cato Institute, okay, they published research earlier this month showing that 1 in 5 people arrested by ICE have been Latinos with no criminal past or removal orders against them from the government. Even they're calling this, quote, a telltale sign of illegal racial profiling. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Now, Carket Sanis warns that through the latest order, Trump is basically creating a vigilante portal where anyone can sign up to be a brown shirt to brutalize poor people, immigrants, people of color, and anyone else who might dare to, say, go to a protest. That sounds pretty authoritarian. And again, you know, they're going after homeless people for being homeless, for being poor, okay? And again, going after immigrants, as I already mentioned. And so this guy, he says, look, there should be a nonstop emergency news alert. But instead, mainstream media, mainstream news, and Democrats barely mention it. I think that right there, that's one of the biggest issues we have aside from this obvious fascism. Look, Democrats are afraid to talk about it outside of their vague talking points about democracy. Why would that be? Well, apparently it doesn't poll well enough. What? Yeah, no, seriously. Blue Rose Research. I don't know if you've heard of that. It is a firm led by David Shore. Okay, it was very big in the Democratic Party, Democratic politics. It's one of those consultants, right? Now, his firm produced a memo earlier this month, which looked into the effectiveness of messages related to Trump's DC takeover. And look, apparently those messages were not effective. He then advised, as a result, that Democrats should message on something else. They said that Trump's rising authoritarianism, that's the messages around that are very highly unconvincing. Okay. Now, what messages did work? Well, messages saying that Trump is trying to distract people from his tariffs and the Medicaid cuts were more effective for these people that were tested, right? He also said that Republican messaging about how Trump is clamping down on gang violence was testing through the roof. Now remember, this is the same company that worked on behalf of electing Kamala Harris and had failed. Their advice was to travel around with Liz Cheney and billionaires, okay, and talk about how, just give out very vague messages about how we're fighting for democracy. Okay. Hey, as much as I like the idea of protecting democracy, perhaps you should also give specifics on healthcare, universal healthcare. She didn't really talk about that during the campaign. And so, it wasn't really all that effective. Okay. Now, Blue Rose, of course, has worked with much of the Democratic Party establishment. For example, the DNC, the DSCC, the Senatorial Campaign Committee, their outside spending arm, the Senate Majority PAC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the CCC, and their independent arm, House Majority PAC. So what they've done is they're focus testing what to talk about and what not to talk about. And now, obviously, one of the big problems with that is they're not talking to people, okay? What they're doing, apparently, is according to an article in Rolling Stone, they have been finding terminally online people who take surveys for compensation. Look, I would not even know where you could sign up to be in one of these focus groups. I doubt the vast majority of other people know where to sign up for these groups. Okay? Look, one progressive research expert noted that this company, Blue Rose, what they've tested is so bland that no one is going to notice. Well, that sounds a lot like current Democratic Party messaging right now. Very, very bland. Now, they added that it's absolutely mind-boggling to be discussing message testing in response to abductions, concentration camp construction, like Alligator Alcatraz, by the way, and unleashing the military on Americans. Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. So, look, if you were wondering where the Democrats are, and I'm not saying old Democrats, because there are some that are calling it out, J.B. Pritzker, Tim Walz, but the Democratic leadership, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, all of them, where are they? Why aren't they calling this out? Why aren't they being very, very aggressive in denouncing Trump's DC takeover? Okay. Well, again, I wouldn't expect them to say anything when the brown shirts come, because they're already trying to recruit them now. And why? It's because that message doesn't poll test well. You see. Because they have been convinced that people like this takeover because, well, it's reducing the crime rate, which was already at a 30-year low. So, but understand that the Democratic Party actually has been very, very pro-police. they've been more pro-police than Republicans in recent years, okay? Dumping, billions of dollars into police forces across the country, okay? Pretty much back the blue. And they've been using that, of course, they've been doing that as a result of constant mainstream media messaging about crime rates. But again, crime rates, 30-year low, and local news tends to be one of the worst offenders at continuously focusing on crime, making people believe that crime is out of control everywhere. And so, well, now they kind of stuck themselves into a corner because they can't criticize Trump's DC takeover because it doesn't poll well, and doesn't poll well because they've allowed this right-wing media talking point of crime is out of control to permeate all across the country, making it so that some people, mainly people who are outside of those places that have been taken over, by the way, because people in DC do not like what is going on for the most part, to believe that, wow, obviously we had to send in the military to restore order. And so there you go. I wouldn't expect the Democrats to come and say anything about this for all of those reasons. And, again, you can think a lot of things, but specifically, you can also think this Blue Rose and their just incredible weakness in trying to find a message. Okay, anyway. All right, that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Please like and share if you haven't already. Let's see. They don't seem to understand that most people see right through this BS now. But they sent a letter and used words. They're fighting. Yes, strongly worded letters, everybody. The people Blue Rose polls are rich people, or they're just, very extremely online. And well, I think I'm pretty sure I know the corners that they hang out on. And yeah, definitely not a place that I like to frequent, where they're still mad about Bernie. Oh, the Bernie Sanders, Bernie bros caused us to have Trump. Yeah, those people. Yeah, those types of people. So there you go. It's a great story to share. Thanks. Yes, I thought so too. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Let's see. How about some good policies? No. Too old-fashioned. Yes, they're afraid to give up their power and status quo, says Boofed It. Exactly. All right. So look, I'm gonna be out on Monday. Gonna try to relax for the holiday a bit. So hopefully you're able to as well. It's Labor Day, so there's a lot of protests that are planned, which is good. I'm gonna need that because Trump, as I mentioned, the Trump administration is coming for labor rights, and yeah, it's we're gonna need to continue to fight against that and fight for workers. So, that said, thank you all. Like and share the stream. Support independent progressive media by becoming a member, hitting the join button below, or becoming a patron. Patreon.com/jeffwaldorf. Again, I don't get big money from super PACs or big donors or anything like that. I just get money from you guys, and I use that money for the show and to pay the bills. And so, luckily, I've got a pretty low overhead, and I want to keep it that way. But who knows? If I do end up getting enough funding, maybe I can hire a producer and do more stuff, do more content. But anyway, there you are. Thank you all. Love you, and have a great weekend. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody.